Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora. Tihei Mauri ora. Ngā mihi mai Auaha ki a koutou katoa. Nau mai, hara mai, kia tau mai ki tēnei wāhanga ko Auaha Live. Ko Sandra Julian ahau, ko Ngāti Matunga, Ngāti Tama, Pautama, me tia tiawa o ku iwi no Taranaki. Kia ora and a warm welcome to another episode of Auaha Live. I'm Sandra Julian, founder of Auaha Business Event Agency and approved professional conference organizer. If this is your first time joining us here on Auaha Live, welcome along. This is where I interview the many talented people that dedicate themselves to the business events industry here in Aotearoa. With the COVID scenarios going up and down, the alert levels going all over the show, and all of us being in different phases of this alert level, it has really sent our industry into a tailspin, really. But we are all super resilient and we are still trucking along, doing business the best that we know how and pivoting in all sorts of ways to continue to do what we love. So today my guest is no stranger to most of you if you've been in the business industry for a wee while. She is an avid networker and her contacts are vast in all areas of the corporate sector and the private sector. She has a big personality and bags of experience in many areas, which makes her diversity in all areas of both business and the creative field really remarkable. I mean, some of the things that she has done in business are just jaw-dropping. And she never fails to amaze me, that's for sure. So let me introduce you to Lizz Santos from Cut the Mustard. Liz, welcome along to Auaha Live.
Oh, lovely to be here. Lovely to be here. Thank you for that. Oh, you get so immersed in this industry, you forget really sometimes what you do. So yeah, thanks very much. That was lovely.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's start by introducing yourself. I mean, many of us will know who you are, but for those that don't and are tuning in for the first time, let's introduce yourself and what you currently do in business.
So my New Zealand story started 21 years ago this year. I came to New Zealand in 1999 with a theatre background. So I was a theatre designer for many years overseas. My brother called me, it's a very short story, my brother called me and said, come to New Zealand. And I said, where's New Zealand? And I kind of knew about Jonah Lumu and I kind of knew about Kiwis, but that was really and I knew where it was on the world map. So I didn't think it was part of Australia. And I kind of walked into New Zealand with no real expectations of really what I was walking into. And my career path, I guess, here in New Zealand has kind of taken a similar wave in that I've kind of been landed in situations which are quite unique and quite unusual, which has suited me fine. And so really I started off teaching in New Zealand, then in theatre design for Unitec and for Massey University, I did some lecturing. And then Chris Parkin from the Museum Hotel said to me, could you come and design the interiors of the Museum Hotel? I want a theatrical element to it. And that kind of bore really, I guess, the birth of Cut the Mustard originally, in that I saw that there was this niche in New Zealand for something a little bit more theatrical, a little bit more out of the box. And that's when sort of the whole birth around events, the event sort of platform, experiential platform, all of those things kind of combined into what is now Cut the Mustard, which we formed in 2002. So it's really, I guess for me is my thing is new creative challenges. I'm absolutely diabolical as a businesswoman from the financial aspect of things. I'm completely run by creativity. So, you know, and so I've managed to do some really incredible projects because of that, because I haven't allowed the money side of business, I guess, to determine which is the work that I do. And in that, I've been very lucky. I've got lots of incredible clients, yourself included, who really believe in that process of change and doing things a little bit differently. And I guess you either love me or you hate me in one way or another. But that's sort of what I've been striving to do for the last 19 years in business. And it'll be 19 years this year in December. But wow, what a roller coaster. Like, what a roller coaster. You know,
and so how did you know, doing the interior of the museum hotel, that could have led you down this whole path of doing interior design and doing fit outs of commercial buildings or other hotels.
Yeah.
That wasn't a draw card?
No, well, we've done other things. So we've done the interiors of the Australian High Commission in the homestead. We've done the aquatic centre in Kōrero. We did that twice, I think, over the years. So yes, those kind of projects that are a little bit different do come our way every now and then. But I just love all different forms of design, and I love the forms of design that stick around, like the Museum Hotel, which stuck around for many, many years before it was upgraded now to QT in Wellington. I love the projects where you're doing a conference where it gets stripped away after 3 or 4 days. So for me, it's not really about that medium and how long that medium stays. It's about the fact that I guess where events pushes me even further is for that very reason that it's temporary and then it's got to come down. So I guess I've always been, I've done lots of other crazy stuff as well that is, you know, I've designed music CD covers back in the day. I've done all sorts of different kind of creative mediums, from opera to dance to theatre to print to art directing on TV shows in New Zealand when I first came. So for me, it's like the mediums, I quite like that mix of mediums.
Because again, you could have stayed in television and done like backdrops in television, and you could have done all of it. But this event industry just keeps pulling and pulling and pulling.
It does, right? And I don't know what I think the root of that is the people. I think probably more than else. And I think, like you say, we're an incredibly resilient lot. We're an incredibly crazy bunch of people, which is a bit like the theatre industry as well. Like when you're sitting in a black box for a week, it takes a certain kind of personality during production week to be sat in that box. But for me, I guess the events gives me that kind of stimulus. I love being, my biggest thing that I love more than anything, but don't tell my clients, is I love pulling stuff out my ass last minute. I love it when a client comes to me on the day and says, right now, we want such and such over here. And that kind of excitement in me is kind of like, right, then I'm in full-blown mode and I make it happen. And that's, for me, that challenge, which you don't get in a interior project for a hotel. You only get that with deadlines. And I think that's probably the biggest thing for me, is that deadline, that looming deadline where we have no choice but to make that happen on that day at that time, and that's it, and you have to walk away. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that thrill of seeing it all pull together, the thrill of lots of different people pulling together. I've always said I'm a cog in a bigger mechanism. So we're one part that draws everybody together. And that's very much something that I learned in theatre, that you know, the design of the production, it was about the actors, it was about the design, it was about the lighting, it was about the prompt person that prompted in the back of the stage. And that really taught me as a basis for 15 years that we are one part of a whole vision. And I love that whole vision. I try to bring the whole vision together for the client. You know, I'm often, people who know me in the industry know that as a client, when I work for a client, I work overall the whole thing. So if the lighting guys are not pulling their weight, or they're putting on the wrong color of lighting, I'll tell them, because for me, it's about the whole process and the whole project. And so, yeah, it's that. Maybe it's the deadline thing. Maybe that's what.
Well, and maybe it's the short. There's multiple projects over in a year, whereas probably an interior of a hotel or something like that might be the year's project, whereas events are the relatively short lead-in time when you think of other projects that take years. And yeah, they're in, they're done, they're over, you move on, it's the next. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I definitely know, you know, that's part of it for me, is that it is, I don't know, it's a short gratification period. You're not working away constantly at the same thing. It's varied. And you get to the deadline, and then you move deadline, and then you move deadline for different events, and it's constantly evolving. So.
And I think that's really important for the industry's health as a whole, because, you know, look, obviously there are sometimes you work on a project and you walk away from that project and say, oh, actually, that really doesn't suit me, or that client, that relationship hasn't quite gelled, you know, and I think that's really healthy. I love it, you know, when clients do choose other providers, because I think we've all individually got an individual personality. We've all got something different to offer, and clients could be at different places at different times. And for me, that's really cool. I love the fact that, you know, I never get upset if a client goes to another supplier, for instance, for that next year. And it's kind of like, that's great. I really think people should do that. And that, I think, is also an element of this industry, which is so great, is that there is choice for people out there, and there is choice. And sometimes those relationships, as you know, just are incredible. The you know, those relationships where the client understands how I work, they get the best out of me. You know, it's always a funny thing. If a client tries to lock me down in a box too tightly, you'll never get the best out of me. And so there are certain clients that work really well with that, and certain clients that don't. And so I love that diversity. I love the diversity that, you know, in a given year you can have, you know, 80 projects or 10 projects. It doesn't really matter how many, but that they're all with different people with different visions and different challenges.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I always believe that your right fit client will find you.
Absolutely.
And not for everybody.
No.
For everybody. And so, but they'll go to another PCO and they'll have a thriving relationship with that PCO. That doesn't mean to say that I did a bad job, or that they're better than me or better than the next PCO. It's just, we all are different. And your personality and how you operate and your values go into what makes the relationship gel or not.
Absolutely.
So great. Yeah. You only want to work with the clients where you can work together successfully. If you are like pushing shit uphill the whole relationship, then you need to part ways, and they need to go find someone else who will work better for them because of values and personality. So, you know, I'm all about that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, you know, I don't get phased. I remember one year, about 3-4 years ago, I met with a client, and it was a huge budget, if for our terms. So within the kind of the design area, it was a big budget. It was $250,000 budget. And I walked away from the job. And I came back to the office, and the staff were like, oh my God, what's going on? And I said, you know, it'll be the devil I do or the devil I don't. I just don't feel this is a great working relationship. And I feel there's other people that can work with that client better. And so I'm not afraid to do that. And the first time I did that was actually quite exhilarating, really, on a front, because I think that there's no point going into a relationship with a client that you just know is not going to work under whatever that might mean. And I think, you know, I think it's so right. It's those relationships and those synergies between, you know, your vision and the client's vision is so important. It's so important.
So, I mean, you've done some amazing things. Like, every time I see some of your stuff, it just makes my jaw drop, you know? So where does this constant pull and flow of inspiration come from to make things that are just like, Who would have thought to make chandeliers out of vegetables? Like, come on, Liz.
Oh, yeah. That's the funny thing is I don't know. I mean, ever since I started my career, even in theatre, I'd get people going, God, where did you come up with that idea for that set design? You know, when I taught set design, one of the things that I said to my students was, you know, I don't look at Pinterest. I don't look at what the opposition are doing. I don't look at what are the next trends out there. I'm quite oblivious to all of that. But what I do is I open my eyes. So, which sounds really simple, but I am so observant. I'm constantly looking for new things to stimulate my eyes and my other senses. I travel a lot. Those experiences of travel in the last few years have been incredibly nurturing for my ability to create. And I just think it's that inner want to do something different and do something that nobody else is doing. And I don't care if everybody does it after me, but just being that first person to try something and push those boundaries. And I do believe that my theatre background has been an incredible help in understanding product and understanding what materials can do and not do. And I think that is a huge part of, you know, even the vegetable chandeliers, right? So yeah, crazy idea. Let's put a whole load of live vegetables on a structure and hang it up in the air. Well, then obviously my brain's going a million miles an hour. How am I going to put those vegetables onto the chandelier? And what will happen to those vegetables over a period of time? Will they rot? Will they, you know, fall off whether it's a cable tie or a hook or whatever it is? And so there's a certain amount for instance, with that particular job where we had to do a whole lot of experimentation over a period of weeks to make sure, and obviously it was only ever going to be up for 2 or 3 days, but we wanted to make sure that the vegetables didn't rot, and when did they start rotting and wilting, and the size and change, and weight. That was one of the biggest things, was weight. So, you know, these are all kind of, I love that side of it as well, not only the creative, but how do we make it happen? How do we achieve it? And that has been from years of being female, being young in professions, and men telling me, yeah, but you can't do that. I learned a long time ago that I know exactly how to do it, so that if somebody comes to me and says, we can't do that, I can say, well, actually, have you tried to do it this way? So I guess I have a mechanical or engineering kind of mind as well. So not only the creative, but how do you achieve that? And that's something I always taught my students, was never try to achieve something that you can't do. So understanding your design and understanding the functionality of that design is really important too. But where do the ideas come from? Who knows? I really can't pinpoint it. It just happens. Luckily, so far, touch wood.
Yeah, luckily.
I know, right? Maybe it's a bit of luck, I don't know. But I think it's just, I just get inspired. We're about to do a conference in November, and I'm pushing every boundary I've done. I am doing fully 100%. I set myself boundaries as well, right? So set myself this project of 100% sustainable theming or design. And yes, that has pushed every boundary that I have ever experienced. So no cable ties, no nothing that can be, no tape, no nothing. So yeah, but these are all great kind of experiences really. And I'm really excited about that to happen, because that's going to be, again, it's kind of, I think it's going to top the vegetable chandeliers if we can top that. But yeah, it's going to be really exciting. So yeah, just being pushed and having those clients who really just let me go wild and just say, you know, come back and just tell me, you know, that you've met the budget and that you're going to do something awesome, and over to you. So yeah,
that's going to be interesting how you make something that is completely sustainable, especially when there's engineering as part of how it stands or how it hangs or how it's displayed, the structure of it. So yeah, that's a good challenge for you.
Health and safety, because of course that's a big now, so it has to be safe. So yeah, it's, I'm working with a couple of suppliers with Fletcher's and also with Fulton Hogan, and yeah, we're going to come up with some really cool stuff. I'm really excited. So yeah.
Now, you've also done some other stuff in your business over the years, 2 that I can think of off the top of my head that I've seen you do. One was like Theme in a Box.
Yes.
That was a few years ago. And then the other one was your Christmas tree, like your Christmas tree business. So where did the whole theme in the box come from, and then what's happened to that since?
So Theme in the Box came about because Good Morning TV wanted me to do a slot. So I did a slot for about 7 or 8 weeks on Good Morning, and they wanted kind of table setups. I don't know how they got onto me originally, but anyway, so we'd go in early in the morning once a week and we'd do these setups. And then it kind of bore the idea of why not have dinner theming in a box, flat price, and they get sent out. Which was a great idea in theory, but I think the sales part of it kind of let it down. It just didn't really get. I think that what I learned from that is that when you're selling a product to a corporate commercial environment, it's quite different from selling a product to a domestic environment. And I think I underestimated that. So it didn't really last very long, but Christmas was another one of those products that I started 10 years ago. And in fact, I'm surprised that it's even still going, but it's actually, funnily enough, during COVID, going to be the one thing I think that saves us at the end of this year. But Christmas, again, that was one of those crazy ideas where I came up with, how expensive can it be to do a Christmas tree? And I remember Paula Beveridge, who used to have Bellevue back in the day, who's a good friend. I remember her saying to me, how are you making a profit out of Christmas? Because I really don't understand with these prices you're charging. And I was really gung-ho about it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to make loads of money. Anyway, it turned out after that Christmas, when I look back at the costings that I'd done, this is where it comes back to me being a good businesswoman financially, I hadn't included the cost of the Christmas tree. And when I actually did include the cost of the Christmas tree, I realized it was going to be 3 or 4 years before I made a profit. So that was another one of those kind of, okay, well, let's give it a go. I'm very good at giving it a go. I think being in business, one of the biggest things I think I've learned is that you have to be a little bit risk. It's not averse, it's the other side of averse. You've got to be kind of risk positive to try different things and not worry too much about the financial risk. And I've done that a few times. But Christmas, like I say, has grown and grown and grown. And in fact, it's a standalone business now on its own. And we're already, during COVID, which is great because where our events are kind of really on the down low, we don't have much happening in that department for Cut the Mustard. Christmas has really grown this year, and already I'm at 65% booked. So, which is great for September, which is unheard of for September.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly.
Your Christmas trees are just like next level. I'm sure everyone's walked into at least one or more of the hotels around Wellington, and they're not just a Christmas tree, they're epic. Like they're big and they are full and they are eye-catching when you walk into wherever you've put them up. Yeah, and I think they've got the same kind of philosophy behind them as Cut the Mustard does, is that each tree is unique. Each tree that we do is special, and in that year, no 2 trees look the same. And again, it goes back to the fact that I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. And so, from that aspect, it kind of follows that same course really. And yeah, we're getting bigger and bigger. We've got 15 foots now, and they are just more and more popular. I think people realize the value of them. They're full of decorations, and a lot of them are kind of fun and funky as well. And I think people love that. And each year, the briefs kind of go, okay, well, it's got to be wild and it's got to be amazing. And it's kind of like, great, that'll do me. I can fit that in. And again, it's kind of also just putting things on Christmas trees that you wouldn't necessarily see on Christmas trees. I remember in the early years, feather boas were our big thing. It was kind of our signature. And they've sort of done a bit of a full circle. So, and people would say, God, I never thought about putting a feather boa on a Christmas tree. So yeah, again, it's finding materials or finding objects that we can transpose and put onto a Christmas tree. QT last year, when Hippopotamus restaurant was open, we had gold hippopotamuses on the tree. So, it's just kind of coming up with kind of funky ideas really. Yeah. And so do you kind of have that theme goes into that hotel this year, and then this theme goes into that company next year? Do you keep the same kind of theme on the tree, but they just go into different places every year, or every tree is completely different every year?
And even when we repeat, even when a client comes back and says, oh, look, we just want the same as last year, generally what will happen is that they'll get something different, just because of the volume of decorations that we now own, but also because, again, it's with it's just I never relate back to the same thing. It's always trying to do something a little bit different. The overall theme might be the same, but the decorations might be slightly different.
Nice. And so the Christmas trees are keeping you propped up now?
They are. So that's, for a company that used to be like, oh my God, here we go, Christmas again. It's going to be the savior. It's going to be the savior through COVID for Cut the Mustard without a doubt.
Yeah. And I think everyone's going to be ready for Christmas. Like, it's been a hell of a year. So by the time Christmas comes around, I think everyone will just be ready for a bit of celebration and a bit of cheer spreading and
I agree, and I think the good thing, I guess, and the good thing about Christmas is that Christmas trees is we've got a team of 3, 4, 5 at the max people that can install these. So that means we can do it in lockdown, we can do it in a contained space. So I think that that's the beauty of it. It's not like a big event of 1,000 people or 500 people where we've got restrictions. Christmas decorating is going to be able to happen unless, God forbid, any of the cities get locked down completely and we can't travel between North and South Ireland, for instance. Then I really do think that Christmas is coming. And I look at the clients that are approaching us, which are new clients, not only our old trusted friends, but we've got new clients coming. We've booked for the first time a hospital. We've never decorated a hospital before. So I think there is definitely a resurgence out there for people who are saying, you know what, actually, we want to do this, we want it done properly, and we want somebody to come in and do it, which is great. It's great for us. Absolutely great for us.
And so you've just been located in Wellington. Any thoughts or plans on spreading that circle out?
Look, we've always been in Wellington. We've been persuaded over the years by various people to move to Auckland, to open a branch in Auckland. But to be honest, I think that if there's one of the biggest lessons that COVID has taught me, it is around, we dropped our warehouses from 3 warehouses to 1. We sold off an incredible amount of stock, which has been a really interesting process for me, because where previously I had this inert want to own everything, I'm now way more open to other suppliers. So for companies like Red Pebble, for companies like Event Impressions, for all of those businesses, they've now become my clients. And so we're able to subcontract from them, which also helps the industry as a whole. So I've really learned that actually holding stock and being very careful about the stock that you hold and holding stock that nobody else has become kind of more and more important. So in that vein, I know that the stuff that I have is special and is open to be able to be hired by other companies as well. And it keeps our carbon footprint smaller. So as a business moving forward, the business will be a completely different model. I have, funny enough, increased the wages of our crew, because I feel like during this period as well, it's all about helping people out. That's a really big thing for me. That's another thing that has been very clear since COVID. And so just, I don't see us moving out of Wellington. I see us doing less work, but more condensed work. And I see us just really changing a little bit of the way that we work within the industry as well. So big change is afoot. It's going to be really interesting to see whether that works or not, or whether actually, if we meet in another year's time and I've got 6 warehouses full of stuff, we'll see. But I don't think so. I think it's just changed for me about how we can work more efficiently and with more flexibility, because I really do think, my personal opinion is that this is the first of many viruses to come. And if New Zealand's answer to this is lockdown, then I think that we as an industry really need to think about how we are going to navigate that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I personally hope that the government get a management plan that doesn't include escalating up and down these alert levels constantly, because our industry is already doing it hard, and there's only a certain level of tolerance where the event hosts themselves will just completely pull the plug on anything in person, because the uncertainty of going up and down the levels is just not good for business. So my fingers are crossed that government have a management plan to manage the pandemic being in the country, that is good for the economy as well as good for people. So
correct. Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really interesting kind of, I mean, I'm in a lot of ways kind of interested to see where our industry goes in New Zealand. And obviously for us, because we're the creative, we're the design, we're the theming company at the end, we're kind of the icing on the cake, we're going to be the slowest to actually get back up on our feet within our industry. And so, you know, those decisions about what I decided early on with staff, with the size of the business and the way the business was going to move forward, with the stock, with, you know, the whole philosophy of where the business kind of needed to be, has been very much based on that fact. And but then saying that, today I just got an inquiry from somebody who wants to do something next week. So look, that's the great thing about our industry, right? Is you just never know. You never know. There are still pockets, people who want to work in the 100 people, you know, capacity, and who knows where the future is really. And I have my dark days where I go, it's all done. I'm moving to Australia. I'm going to become a dive instructor. I'm done. I'm over it. It's like, you know, I want to be in the ocean. And then I have days where I go, actually, you know what, there's some positivity this week. And, you know, somebody's talked to me about a really exciting project. So I guess that's the thing, isn't it? It's quite emotional. This whole period for everybody is very emotional. And we just have to stay positive and really support each other. I think that's the most important message of anything with COVID is, you know, being really respectful of people and, you know, helping people out as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that short lead-in work, because event hosts will put it off, and they'll, you know, put off engaging the event industry until they have really good certainty around that they can deliver their event. And then it will be like all go in a very short period of time. So I think we'll see a bit of that going on as well as we lead this kind of next 6 months, really.
Yeah, I think so. And of course, that for me is great because I've got to pull it out my butt, you know, in a really short space of time.
So right in your element, you'll be good.
I will be. Oh my goodness, I will be. So it's quite funny. I'm looking at my schedule now for Christmas and packing in Christmas. And for the last 6 months, you know, I haven't been doing a lot of kind of running around the warehouse, and I have been doing a lot of running around on site. And I'm kind of thinking, oh my God, when it hits, it's my body, I hope, is going to be able to keep up with the rest of my brain, because it's been, you know, too long sitting around in front of the desk. Too long. Bring it on.
Well, you have to get down to the warehouse and just run around pretending that you're putting an event together in order to just keep up your event fitness.
That's right. Yes, I was doing that yesterday. I was testing and tagging and running around the warehouse. So it's going to be quite a different shift again. It's like, you know, we've been through these amazing shifts, right? And when you've been in it for 6 months, which is, you know, almost as long as COVID has been with us, then it's just lots of kind of mental health stuff, you know, to kind of get over and just kind of be present and learn. Really, I think my biggest motto through all of this is, you know, it'll be what it'll be, and we just have to go through it. And there are some times you just have to believe in, you know, positivity and what's going to happen, and just let it happen and not get too stressed.
Yeah, that's the hard bit though, is moving your mind into that being rather than, you know, worry and anxiety around what next. So
yeah, absolutely. We need to be careful, you know, for all of us, self-care, you know, because I've had that through lockdown. I had a bit of certainly over March when COVID hit us very hard in that 4-day week, you know, that panic, that absolute panic. I was in complete shutdown, and I've never experienced that before. And then in kind of lockdown after, is a little bit of depression and anxiety again. Things that were very alien to my natural order. And, you know, so being very mindful, I think everybody needs to be very mindful. And for that reason, I think just being kind and reaching out and keeping in touch with people around us in our industry to make sure that, you know, everybody's okay. And, you know, and just if anybody needs anything, you know that I'm here for anybody, if anybody needs anything. And just, being that kindness is really important. That's really become apparent to me.
So what do you do for self-care in order to make sure that you are still, looking after yourself? Because COVID has been like super devastating for a business like yours.
Yeah,
I talked to Jackie very early on in this series, and it's been absolutely devastating for her business. I can imagine all the other, Centerpiece as well as Red Pebble are all experiencing it, because
of course.
the items where you come into an event and put on, it is like the icing on the cake. And
Yeah.
if budget doesn't quite stretch that far, then those are the things that get pulled off the list. So what have you been doing to make sure that you're looking after yourself, and what are your favorite like self-care things?
So I do massages once a week. That's something that I have kept going. My Pilates is something I used to do a lot of. I'm not doing as much at the moment. And I think for me, it's connection. So I'm catching up with people. I'm having coffees. My office is now in my apartment. And so therefore, being in the city centre is really cool. I catch up with my sister a lot, who's an incredible motivator. I catch up with friends and my family too. And I go up to Kapiti to see them once a week when I go up to the warehouse at the moment. So I think it's really, for me, it's about that connection. I also watch an incredible amount of Netflix, let me tell you. That's my sit in front and just lose myself in whatever TV shows on. But for me, I think for me, it's people. It's that communication, and that's been so cool, catching up with people and going to meetings. You get excited about going to meetings. It's like, that used to be an everyday occurrence, and now getting out is really good. So all of those things really. And I'm kind to myself. I allow myself to acknowledge the mistakes I've made over this period, and to, but also to kind of acknowledge when I have done something good. And all of those things are really important.
And it's not to beat up on ourselves, because just about everyone that I've spoken to, 2020 was set to be a bumper year.
Yeah.
We had all our business for the whole year was pretty much in place. We all knew we were headed. So yeah, there could have been spaces for us to beat up on ourselves that we have now got a shitty business, or our business is just, what have we done to make business happen that is not what it was projected to be. So I think just spending some time to work on your own mindset and work out, not beat up on yourself, and just take things in your stride. And looking after your mental health is just as important as your physical health as well.
I absolutely totally agree. And I think that, from years and years of being a freelance designer, back in the day, feast and famine, and I think that we're all very bad, or I'm very bad. During the good times, you don't think about it, but during the bad times, you just completely obsess about the good times. And that, I think, has helped me slow down. It's when I'm scuba diving under the ocean, it's the same thing. I have to slow right down. I have to be, it's quite different from being on Earth, on land for me. And I think that part of that sort of meditation process about being underwater and scuba diving I have brought into how I'm feeling at the moment, that it is what it is. It's just let it overwash, and it'll all be all right at some point. And whatever decisions that I decide to make are the right decisions at the time. Have no regrets, but at the same time, just agree that is what you're doing. Not spending your time going, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that. And I think that's really important, because it's a completely different year from any of us. We lost our work in 4 days. We literally lost everything in 4 days, and that's a massive lesson in business as well, I think. But it's also, for so many people I know, they've reevaluated everything in their lives, and I think that's so cool that we have this chance to reevaluate what is important. And I think that can only make us better people, and therefore our business is better moving forward. They're different. My business is never going to be the same again. It's a very different business moving forward, but that's not to say it isn't better, and it isn't better for me to do that. So yeah, positivity, really, really important. Super, super important.
And the one thing that I've been, that really resonated with me over this time was you make the best decision now. And if it was the wrong decision, you just make another decision.
Correct.
You know, it's not like that decision is set in stone. It was the best decision you could make at that given time with those given circumstances and knowledge. And then if it was the wrong decision, you just go and make another decision and keep doing that over and over again. And, you know, until you get to where you want to be or feel comfortable to be. Or so it's not beating up on yourself for making the wrong decision, because you just make another one and keep moving forward.
I totally agree. It's like, you know, life is short, man. You know, life is too short. There's so many exciting things to be out there to be grabbed. And yeah, let's just keep on that road to positivity and helping each other to do that. And like I say, and like you say, looking after your mental health and be kind to yourself as well as everybody else.
So whereabouts do you go scuba diving here in Wellington?
So I don't. I'm a complete wuss. Too cold in Wellington.
Freezing.
It is freezing. So in New Zealand, one of the best dive sites is Kōrero, which is up in the Bay of Islands. And Dive to Kōrero is run by two of my really lovely friends. And I'm up there in December for Christmas. And in the summertime, that's warm enough for me. But most of my diving is done overseas. I spend a lot of time in Western Australia, in Exmouth. Again, I've got really lovely friends in the little town of Exmouth, which is on a reef, and it's the most incredible place on the planet. I highly recommend people go there, out in the middle of nowhere, but that's beautiful. I've dived in PNG. That's quite amazing, Papua New Guinea. So warm water is normally where I aspire to. I've had sadly two trips, one to Borneo and one to Raja, in fact, this year cancelled. So that's kind of a bit of a bummer, but I'll get there one day. One day I will get to those places. But yeah, warm water definitely for me. Don't like wetsuits.
Like my son does surf lifesaving, and he's out in the southern, because we live over in Houghton Bay. So he's down in Lowell Bay, and I'm like, I can't even put my toe in the water. It's just like icicles. I'm like, oh, can't do it.
Yeah, not for me.
No.
Although beautiful diving in Wellington, I can't, you know, people say amazing. You can see lots of seahorses. Yeah, it's actually very clear off Island Bay. So I will one day, just maybe in the summer, maybe when it's, you know,
put a wetsuit on.
Yeah, no, right. That's isn't that the great thing, right? Is that winter's almost passed by through COVID. Here's a great positive. Now we're kind of almost coming out to spring, and it's going to be summer before too long. And you know what? That's going to lift everybody's spirits. It's going to be great and warm. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's definitely a positive, is that COVID happened in winter. Just imagine if that happened in summer. Like, oh.
For the rest of the world, like the Northern Hemisphere have had summer. So, and I think
that's lucky.
I know. Well, not only because everybody said, you know, we're in the Southern Hemisphere, we're going to get hit really hard because it's winter. And now we're going into summer. So I just think positivity, the sun comes out, that vitamin D injection for everybody. That's it's great. It's just good to look forward to, you know.
All right. One question that I like to ask everyone before we wrap up is, what has been your one aha moment in business?
I think never to underestimate. Never to underestimate. And I think that happens on so many different levels. Never underestimate what's going to happen in the world, and COVID, for instance. Never underestimate what job your client can bring you. Never underestimate a budget and how flexible you can make a budget work, you know, when you really want to. And I think that, you know, never underestimate your capabilities as a business owner, you know. And I think that's probably, never underestimate would probably be the thing. And I think that sometimes I do, you know, overestimate, or I do underestimate. And each time I come back to it and go, wow, you know what, actually, that was a big surprise. And I think, that would probably be my overall, because it has changed the business. You know, in the last 19 years, I've gone from everything to everything, from no staff to one staff, to build it up, to break it down, to build it up, to break it down. And, you know, I've done some incredible projects. So never underestimate. And you know, you never know what's going to come into your email box or into your phone at any given time. That's the great thing. It's the most stressful thing as well, but it's also the really great thing. You just never know. You never know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I like that. That's really good. It's just expect the unexpected is the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what our industry is all about, really. That's the magic. Because we're all smoke and mirrors, really. That's what events is all about. It's like that whole performance, entertainment. We're kind of smoke and mirrors, and we build it all up, and it looks incredible, and we change a space. You know how many spaces you walked into that's been completely changed, and that's what we do. It's like smokes and mirrors and magic. So never underestimate your own ability, or never underestimate, your vision, really, I guess, as well. Let's keep making really incredible events in New Zealand, and let's keep our industry alive. That's really so important for so many people, and a legacy that we need to leave behind for all the young people coming up, right? Because I think it's aged me, right? By at least 10 years.
It's always good to set some really good benchmarks, to keep evolving and keep creating and keep innovating, and always looking for new things, because that's part of the events industry as well. Is it's about, yes, delivering the content, because we're a business events industry, so we're all about professional development, but it's the experiential journey of connecting the content with the experience that creates that something special in your event. And it's just not another event of sitting in a room listening to another speaker. It's how do you turn that into an experience? Because experience is our new currency, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's probably the biggest thing moving forward. If I've got a message for anybody, for clients, is that don't forget that. Let's not go back to a space when I came into the industry 20 years ago, where nobody saw the value of, of the design and the experiential parts of the event, not just content, the AV, the catering, or the venue. Just remember that people like us, and there's many companies here in New Zealand creating the experiential part of it. Don't forget about us. Don't cut that out of your budget, because it is so important. And once you cut it out, it's very hard to come back. So that would be my only fear, if I have one fear about our industry from our perspective, selfishly, from our kind of creative perspective, is that people will go back and then they'll forget to do that bit, or not see that bit as important. So I hope that because we've all spent a long time and invested a number of years as businesses that have been around for a long time in investing in educating the industry that what we do is super important. So that's probably my biggest fear, if I have one moving forward, is that we will get left behind and we'll all have to start again on that journey. And I hope that isn't the case.
Yeah, I don't think it will be, because experience is everything. And after being in lockdown, people are looking for experiences. They're looking to get out, and not just get out and connect and engage face to face, but it's that experience that comes along with that. So, I'm pretty confident that it's experience is the norm, because the younger the generation, the more the experience they expect.
Yes, well, that's true as well. And instant. Don't forget, it's all got to be instant on your telephone. Oh my goodness. Yeah, but you're right. And I think that was the thing before COVID. We saw an incredible amount of work and a lot of experiential work that has now disappeared. Will come back. Some of the clients are going to take a bit longer to come back. We do an awful lot with Auckland Airport. It's going to be, they're one of those clients it's going to take a while for them to come back into that space. But I do think that there was certainly a shift, most definitely before COVID, to the importance of what we do. And I just hope that that just continues and continues to keep all of us back in to get us all back into the industry and keep us in the industry. I don't want to see anybody go. It's really important that we all stay alive, no matter how we do it, whether that's banding together, whether that is just support. But anybody out there doing what I'm doing, we just need to stick together. I don't want to see anybody go out of the industry, and it's been great, and those relationships have been really, really built. I mean, I talk to Tiffany from Centrepiece up in Auckland all the time. I speak to Jackie when I can, and also to Michelle from Red Pebble, Jackie from Event Impressions, and all those people, Ian from Activities Unlimited. All those people are really important in our industry, and Chris, Theme Pro down south. So and I think us talking to each other is really, really important, helping each other out. So I'm big supporter of that.
Yeah, awesome. Liz, thanks so much for joining me here today. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and fascinating to what you get up with too, and the things that you create. Like I said before, it's always jaw-dropping the stuff that you do. So thanks so much.
No worries, no worries. Thank you.
Also, joining me, let me put myself on the screen. Thanks for joining us here today. I really do hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Liz. Never anything boring when you're in a room with Liz. So if you missed this live here today and you want to get the replay, it will be available on Facebook soon, and then my team will upload it to YouTube and share it around the other social media platforms. If you think there is anyone in your network that would benefit from a listen to this episode, please feel free to share it around. It is just learning more about the individual people that make up the business events industry here in New Zealand, because we are real people and we have been really affected by how COVID has taken our industry. If you would like to be reminded about future episodes, then make sure to like our Facebook page so we can alert you to when new episodes are released. We are here every fortnight on a Friday, 12:30, talking to our different people that make up the business events industry here in Aotearoa. I'll be back on the 2nd of October talking to Sarah Sarank from Sarah Sarank Catering. And she got up to some interesting things over the COVID lockdown and pivoted her business, and it was really genius. So come back in 2 weeks for that conversation. But otherwise, wishing you all a great weekend. The weather here in Wellington is blue skies and calm. So hopefully it is like that where you are in the country. So go get outside during the weekend, enjoy your family, and enjoy what we have here in our country. So kia pai o koutou rā whakatā, mā te wā.